on was an overhaul of our comms policy. What is a comms policy? How can we communicate better with the public? And so we tasked Rose with coming up with various options and the presentation that we have tonight. It's kind of a working, this is going to be a work in progress. We took some suggestions from Mayor Pro Tem Young, some suggestions from the mayor, and I'll let Rose kind of go with what we have put together. I think the one thing we're going to focus on tonight is probably a better website, and that may solve a lot of our issues that we're having. So.
Hello. Where's my clicker? Hold, please.
Did we take your clicker?
Someone took my clicker. It was probably me. It was me.
It was there an hour ago.
So this is going to be a pretty simple overview. It just kind of gives kind of a state of where we're at and what our strengths and our challenges are right now, and my opinion as far as where we can do better and how we can do better. And I also have some handouts that I'll give out here in a minute that are some examples of what I would suggest the policy would be. Most of it is lifted very heavily from other cities that have invested a great deal of time and money into creating these policies. There's really no need for us to reinvent the wheel if we have those kind of resources available. So without further ado.
Or we have a do.
Further ado.
Oh, now I got to click on the screen. Now I'm great at communication. No, I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the channels that we use to communicate currently. We have our website. We have social media accounts. Facebook is our primary social media, but of course we also have our YouTube that we use to post our videos. We have Blackboard Connect, that is our call-out system that is used primarily for public work emergencies such as a water main break, street closure, and of course for weather notifications. We do the monthly newsletter and the water bills. And then we have other methods such as communication with local media and direct contact initiated by our citizens to us. So if somebody calls or emails us wanting information, that's another method that we use to communicate. Where are we succeeding? Our use of our existing channels has become a lot more consistent and of higher quality. A lot of that has to do with the fact that now we do have a designated staff member that uses those channels. And so our messaging has become a little bit more regular. People are starting to get used to this is where we can expect to see information, and this is where we can expect to find what we're looking for. Our Facebook metrics for the last year show that people following our page and engaging on our page have risen sharply. Again, that's probably due to having a full-time administrator for that account. We have good relationships with local media. We were able to work with them, especially when we need to get the word out for something. We have great partnerships with those guys. Here's where we get a little bit more into the details. What are our challenges? The website is not completely up to date, and that's not necessarily through the fault of any staff. There are pages on the website that are accessible via a Google search that are not accessible through the website. There are a number of pages where we have duplicate pages. For example, the city secretary page is in 2 different locations on our website. So any change that is made to the city secretary page has to be made twice. Our zoning map is in 4 different places. These are not things that are easy to fix. The back end of the website basically would take a degree in programming to be able to decode on a regular basis. When I have to make a change to the website, it takes me usually 2 hours and 4 calls to tech support. Social media. Not everyone is on social media. We have a number of residents, particularly our older residents, who don't use Facebook or Twitter or Nextdoor. And so social media doesn't, when we post something to Facebook, it doesn't necessarily reach everybody. And Facebook has a mind of its own, and I may post something one day and it reach 15 people. Something I post the next day may reach 1,500. And there's absolutely no way I can control that. Social media is very time consuming for those sorts of reasons, because if you don't post on social media on a regular basis, the Facebook algorithm makes it so that people see your posts less often. So unless I'm on there once, twice a day coming up with something to post to get people engaged, the fewer people see us. And then the third facet for social media is that inviting engagement in a public forum can often lead to misunderstandings. I think we have all seen the cases on Facebook where someone will say, well, I saw in another thread or I saw in another forum. And it's difficult to get in there and battle that misinformation sometimes. And again, extremely time consuming, as I think all of you who have seen any of the local threads can tell that there's people just at it all the time. It would be a full-time job. And most cities that have extremely active social media accounts have a specialist dedicated to social media. One full-time employee whose only job it is to talk to people on social media. Blackboard Connect. Blackboard Connect is a good system for call-outs, but it's kind of outdated nowadays. There's a lot of technology out there that's more efficient and easier to use. One problem in particular that we have had with Blackboard is that emergency notifications are very delayed. We had an instance back in October where we had a severe thunderstorm come through the city. The call-out was sent almost immediately as soon as the fire department knew. It took nearly half an hour to reach all our citizens. And those are the ones who are in the Blackboard system. One area in which we are fortunate is that our new siren system may have the ability to do notifications through the siren system. We're looking at that. The newsletter. Print's expensive. A large chunk of my budget for the communications department is print, specifically printing the newsletter. The turnaround time to print the newsletter, it takes me a week to get it back once I send it to the printer. And then we have to get it out in the water bills, and so by the time what I put in the newsletter hits people's mailboxes, it's usually been between 2.5 and 3 weeks. So by then, they've already heard that information elsewhere most of the time. Space limitations control the amount of information we can provide. I've only got 2 pages in that newsletter. That does not allow me to get a lot of information out to folks. Now, as far as an overall communications plan goes, really? It was just working. Betty, you want to go over there and click on that screen on my monitor? I'm used to being the tech support, so.
It's probably made in Lubbock.
Wow.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. What did I ever do to
Yeah,
you?
just click on it, Betty.
That was a joke. That was a joke.
You know it is made in Lubbock?
It's not clicking? Cool. Wait, hold on. All right, no, where we were at was good. Okay, wait, hold on. Go to my last slide, or the second to last slide. Yeah, that one. Okay, so looking at the work that other cities have done before us, a good plan includes 4 major facets. It includes some basic communication guidelines that apply to staff and kind of goes an overview of what channels you use, basically the things that I just ran down for us. Usually there's a standalone social media policy, again, that applies to the guidelines of how the city is going to use social media and what their strategy and philosophy behind social media is going to be. It includes an emergency communications plan. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And there's usually a style guide, which is basically a branding thing to make sure that we're all using the same logo, that all of our business cards look similar, that any publications that go out from the city all use the same basic style. Branding is the first step towards credibility as far as marketing goes. And a style guide establishes guidelines that, if, say, somebody in City Hall wants to send out a press release and they need the letterhead for it, well, there's a central location to find that letterhead. It ensures we all use the same logo and everything kind of looks the same. So my suggestions, and I'm going to go ahead and have y'all pass these down. These are drafts. These are not set in stone. These are examples of what I suggest. This includes a copy of the communications practices, the emergency communications plan, and the social media policy. I did not have time to put a suggested style guide together because it's time consuming, but I have a copy of the City of Weatherford's, which is amazing. Ours would not need to be as in-depth as the City of Weatherford's. So here's my suggestions. My first suggestion is that we need a new website badly. The back end of this website it's tangled up. The comparison that I made is, imagine that you've bought a new home, and when you get into the new home, first you have to empty out everything from the previous owner before you can move in yourself. In this case, the previous owner was a hoarder and very disorganized. So I think that if we created a more user-friendly experience that was less time-consuming for staff to use, Part of the problem here is that when staff has to make a change to the website, it takes up a lot of our time. And you have to have advanced knowledge of how it works to make the changes. If we got something that's a little more user-friendly, both on the back end and the front end, I just think it'd make it better for everybody involved. That being said, I think that one of the things we need to do strategy-wise is start getting people used to going to the website first as their first source of information. We make that website easy for them to use, easy for them to find what they need to find. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but the website that I'm proposing is very, very user-friendly. There's a lot of good feedback on it. The second step is to digitize the newsletter, and this would actually tie in with the new website. The company that we'll go through the proposal here in a little bit, but that company has a way where I can put those newsletters online, one click, emails out to everybody that is opted in on their email. This would allow us to do a lot of things. It would allow us to do a lot of notifications similar to what we do on Blackboard, but instead of the phone ringing and a robot voice telling me that a road's gonna be closed, you get an email. And you get a notification on your phone, you have an email from the city. It just simplifies things and it makes people feel like there's one particular resource to go to. That's kind of where I'm going with this is I would rather us focus our energy in one place that is a really good place than try to do a little of this and a little of that and none of it be as high a quality as I'd like it to be. On that note, the third one is to revise our social media strategy. A lot of public agencies are starting to do this. Facebook and Twitter, which we have a Twitter account, but we have like 4 followers and I think 3 of them are staff. So Twitter is not something we've been making a lot of use of. But social media should be used for marketing initiatives and it should be used for publicity things, like for example, when we had the Grinch, that was a great use of social media. If we are promoting an event, social media would be very, very helpful. If we are just, hey, it's National, Public Works Week, here's a shout out to our Public Works guys. Those are the types of things I suggest we use social media for. Now, when we post something to the website, and again, referring back to the company that I've been talking to, they have a thing that when I post to the website, it'll automatically cross-post to all our social media accounts. Rather than me have to do a post to the web, a post to Twitter, a post to Facebook, a post to wherever else, this automatically pushes it out, says, there's new information on the website, click here to see it. I think social media, we need to kind of rethink how we're using that as a news distribution source. I don't think it's an effective news distribution source. So that being said, that's all I have as far as the policy and the plan goes. Does anyone have any questions or feedback?
The digitized newsletter, would that be something that could be digitized and sent out to a certain group, or is it just gonna be digitized?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Will there be a hard copy too?
Could we do a hard copy and an email?
Well, we can, and we actually do now. The people that get their water bills electronically get a digital copy of it already, and the digital copy is always released at the first of the month on the website. It's actually in the document section of the website. I'm inclined to get rid of the print product altogether.
I think we have too many people to get rid of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
How many
Maybe we'll alter what information we put on there.
how many do we put in the water bills every month?
About 2,000.
We put 2,000. But that's just a standard issue if it goes out in the newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know the number between the overlap between who gets an email copy and who gets a?
I do not have that number.
Okay.
Have you, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, have you looked into another service to send out the newsletter separately, so there's no handling of it?
Postage gets very expensive very quickly. And I can tell you that I spent a few months shopping around printing companies to try to get us the rock bottom dollar deal on this printing expense. And so I am confident, not 100% confident, but I'm pretty confident we're not going to find a better deal on the printing costs.
How much does it cost to print them?
About $300 a month. And that was a deal.
Do you have a question?
You go ahead.
Would there be a way to find, and I can say this, I'm one of them, the over 50 group or something like that, to screen those, to send a printed copy to?
You do have to enter your birthday when you apply for a water account, but I don't know that there's a way to necessarily
I mean,
pull
I've got
the
ways in our
age-related
business
results.
that you can go in and get 30 married single kids.
We could probably mine that data. I don't know how hard or time consuming it would be.
I think once you got it, you'd have it.
Well, or how about just, you can have the option on your water account, would you like to receive a newsletter? Because me, I don't look at the newsletter.
Well,
I look at it online.
if we start going through and trying to determine, okay, the guy that lives at 105 gets a newsletter, the guy that lives at 106 doesn't, the guy that lives at 107 does, we don't have the staff for that.
No, what I'm saying, you would, there are lists that people can get for you in Willow Park that are over that age. And it would be, they'd give you the address and everything.
Well,
But it's,
I don't know.
so
that
we
these
have a
agencies
stack
are
like this of
determining-
water bills, right? And it's everybody, and it's usually done in address order, is my understanding. Just where's Alicia? Can she confirm that? You would have to go through and say, okay, this guy's over 50. Okay, this guy isn't. Okay, this guy is. And for 2,000 people.
Yeah.
And there's, given the utility billing system, I don't know that that's feasible.
I would think it would make the most sense as we try to get a website up and get the email system going, that we duplicate efforts for the first year.
Yeah.
And then we assess.
You see what the overlap
whether it's-
is.
Okay.
Is it worthwhile to keep mailing it out?
Okay, sure.
Do we find, and we can ask citizens and say, hey, this is the last newsletter,
Yeah.
you know, you plan to get in your, if you really feel strongly about it, let us know. We need to know whether you want, you know.
And we
But I
can
think
certainly invite
duplicating
some
efforts
feedback
for
on
a
that.
year makes sense.
And I agree with you, especially as because people are just now getting used to the newsletter. I hate for us to give it and then immediately take it away.
Well, I think too, as far as, if it's something you wanna do, then you just budget for it next budget.
Right.
If it's
Yeah.
10,000, 15,000, you outsource it, then it is.
And we did
So
budget
you
for it this
provide-
year.
And you can, what we can put on we can explore different opportunities, or different ways of mining some information of who wants a hard copy, who doesn't want a hard copy. And you have 12 months to do that.
Right.
Whether
Yeah.
we do a Survey Monkey, whether we do something, we did the same thing when we did the park master plan.
Sure.
There's a way of getting it, and yes, I mean, to your point, Mary, you can do that.
I think there's technology out there that can separate, without the staff looking at 2,000 water bills, we'd have a list of where the
But we
newsletter.
do have a way as far as for a certain.
Weeding
group
it
that
out.
does have the discount, so there it is right
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can certainly explore that,
But
for sure.
I think if you go by age, you're not getting, because not everybody who's 65 and older, I mean,
Watch out now.
no, I'm just saying, they get email too.
You just give them an option to do it. You just have a dialogue over the course of the year, like what Mayor Pro
Yes.
Tem said. Just have it
Yep.
for a year and then explore it.
Right.
And then maybe you have it, maybe you don't. And I think that's a great idea.
I agree.
Yeah.
So you presented mostly website stuff, and are you gonna present it again whenever we review for the website later?
Well, there is a copy of the website proposal in your
Yeah.
packet.
Yeah.
I was gonna go into a little bit more detail about
Yeah.
what features we can have on
Okay.
there and kind of what we're looking at as far
Right.
as why this would be an improvement.
Because I think there are a lot within the website is gonna solve a lot of the communication.
I agree with
stuff.
you.
This workshop is on communications policy. I don't know if we're gonna have much time to go into it. This is the first that I can't hear you. I was just saying that, you know, we're gonna be going over the website later, and as far as communications policy, there's supposed to be a workshop. I don't think we're gonna be able to get into that
Well,
right now.
what would you like to unpack on the comms policy? Is there something specific?
Not yet. I mean, we were gonna open discussion and start, I wanted to see what, you know, she gave us some literature right now. I haven't had a chance to read it. And am I the only one who had the understanding that we were gonna start talking about what we wanted to see in a comms
This is a
policy?
presentation to give us an idea of where we want to go.
Okay, well
And
then,
then in
I-
the council meeting, we've got some ideas, suggestions.
On web, are you talking about content? Like,
yeah, just on our comms, what we discussed in Granbury, getting together to come up with a comms policy.
Well, I think this is the first step. The way I understood it is she's presented the idea of how she's going to pull together a comms policy. And rather than make the effort, tell me if I'm wrong, rather than go to the effort of pulling together a comms policy and not have the direction she's going match what we want, she's given us a general overview of what she's
Exactly.
thinking of. And so I guess if we have input based on that,
Exactly.
of how we want to direct her for that next step, that's what this is, what we're doing right here and now.
This is just me kind of trying to provide you guys a starting point as far as what other cities are doing and what the best practices are. And of course, I'm open to any and all feedback. But I just kind of wanted to put something in front of y'all as kind of a starting point.
Okay, well, I guess in the future with an agenda, it'd be nice to see that she's gonna do a presentation. I just happened to find out yesterday that you were doing a presentation, so I had no idea that this is what the format was gonna be
Okay.
tonight. So, and that was like with the transportation workshop, I also didn't know we were receiving a
Okay.
presentation.
Thanks, Rose. Any other questions for Rose?
Yeah, on the social media side, what about adding additional content for new businesses, new construction going on? People always want to know what's going on with, what's that building that's going in, what's the plans for a new hotel, blah, 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 you know, what,
Right, absolutely. One of the things that, and actually Bernie and I have been working on this already, we're working on a section for the existing website.
Okay.
It's gonna be, basically be what's under development right now. What are they building over there? And we actually previewed that in was it the November newsletter? In the November newsletter. So regardless of what kind of decision is made on the website, we will absolutely be adding that content. It would be the kind of thing we'd push out regularly on social media.
okay.
Yeah.
When are they building the Panda Express?
There's no Panda Express. At this point in time,
There's no Panda, please say that word.
Yeah, please don't start that rumor.
Yeah, please say that
it's already
word.
started.
It's that social media.
Say it, it will come, right?
Yeah.
Any other
So-
questions for Rose?
Well, just real quick, it brought up something about comms and social media. You know, we don't want to promote any individual business, but something to consider, and this was something that I learned at the Economic Development Conference, is anything that an organization does that is for the public good, is good for the city to invest in. And so, for instance, like Willow Park Palooza, it benefits the city and it's something that the city participates in. That would be something that we could promote on our website. Or whenever, who's somebody else who has an event? The run, the fun run thing that they do at the hospital. That'd be something good for us to share.
Okay.
Even though it's not our event, it's a community event.
Right.
And so I think that we should consider implementing that somehow, that if there's an actual event, not necessarily a grand opening, but some kind of
Sure.
community
Absolutely. Okay.
event, that should be something that we consider sharing.
Okay.
And I think you'll go more into the design, I don't think that's what you called it, your first slide, on how the website's gonna be designed. Is that something that this website is going to give us direction on, or are you just talking about in general, us coming up with the branding?
I'm looking for a little bit of council guidance on that. Obviously,
Okay.
if we make a decision to go with a new website, we will want y'all's input
Yes.
on what you're looking for on it.
Uh-huh.
I obviously will have suggestions if you guys want suggestions. The website company will also have suggestions. As a matter of fact, when Alicia, Kenny, and I sat down for the demo with them, he immediately had 3 or 4 ideas about how we could improve and some things that could be improved upon to make it more user-friendly and efficient. So we'd certainly provide y'all with that feedback as well.
Yeah, and something else on the design and the branding, she mentioned a lot, that was something else at that economic development conference, the website was the very first thing that was mentioned, because that's the first thing that residents, potential businesses, potential developers, that's the first thing that they look at. And so by looking at the website, they should be able to know who we are, what we're about, bing, bang, boom. And so that's something worth investing in as far as branding goes. And I'll present more about that in January, how that all works together. But say we act upon getting this web server, I want the web service like yesterday. But will we be able to make alterations as we go? I mean, what would be the launch date, do you think?
Once we sign the contract with them, it's between an 8 to 15-week turnaround, depending on how complicated it is. I'm told ours is going to be pretty complicated, given the state of our current site. But, obviously, they're gonna do what we want them to do with this site.
Okay.
So it's just gonna be a matter of us coming up with a cohesive vision of what we want them to do.
Thanks, Rose.
All right?
We're going to adjourn the meeting and we'll convene at 7 PM at council meeting. Thanks, everyone.